God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Nathan Napalm channel, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon-related content on our march to launch. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about world scale in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, as well as Joppa discussed in the recent update to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen about moving Black Rose Keep to another zone. Now, the old zone that Black Rose Keep used to be in, Avendyr's Pass, is still there. They've just simply moved where that particular dungeon that we've seen a lot, to be honest, in different streams and things. They've moved it to a different zone due to feedback from the players. In previous pre-alphas, it said that there's just not a sense of scale there or what have you. So what they've done is as they mentioned, they have 7 zones that are already rendered and more in a playable state. However, this particular zone that they moved Black Rose Keep to is pretty much greyboxed, and greyboxed just simply means that there's no textures and it hasn't went through its graphical pass. As you can see right here, this is what zones look like when they're ready. Okay, so this is a clip from a zone that we've seen that actually is complete. Now, not to say there won't still be a few graphical upgrades here and there, but this is pretty much what you can expect the game to look like. Now, what you're about to see, or what I've already shown a couple times in the video, which is the new zone that Black Rose Keep is in, is greybox. That just means they've got the terrain laid out how they want it to look, and then they can go back in and add the textures, and it's much faster with the way they're designing Pantheon to do that. However, they place their NPCs, they place all their points of interest, they get everything all laid out before they get to that point, because they can build the world more alive and things like that, and with better fidelity, and also, of course, tweaking and making sure that the runs smoothly at high frame rates and all that kind of thing. So this is the gray boxed area, and let's take a listen to Joppa explaining this move of this Black Rose Keep to this new zone, and let's see what we can get from it. Right before we do that, though, real quick, I want to give a special shout out to the members of Napalm. Thank you for joining and keeping my lights on. If you would like to support this channel, please consider clicking the join button down below, and it will pull up the options that I have, and have many different options to become a member. Now let's hear what Joppa has to say.
Much of what we've been working on during Project Fairtale has to do with the world layout, the world size, scope. And while there are several new areas of the game world that have been developed and are online, we've also been able to spend some time revisiting some of these earlier areas as well to make sure that they're truly standing up to the standard of world scale that we want and that we know that the community is hungry for as well. Let's go ahead and roll it, and then I'll talk about it. We're going to take a look here at Black Rose. So the best way to coin what we're going for with the scale and flow of Pantheon's game world and the travel within it is that it all serves to create a sense of arrival. That's another way to think about kind of what we were hearing with in some of the feedback earlier on, is that if the world is too small, if the areas within the world are too small, if there's not enough distance to travel between point A and point B, that sense of arrival is going to be missing. That sense of seeing things off in the distance, or that sense of feeling like I've traveled a long way to get here, and so actually getting here feels really important.
All right, let's stop there for a second, because I want to talk about that. So it's very important that we get a sense of scale in an MMO. After all, it's a massive multiplayer online RPG, so we need the massive part, right? The world should feel big and alive. We talk about the world a lot on this channel, and it's nothing actually new to MMORPGs. Of course, we've had lots of games that have had really good open worlds or big, huge zones that made you feel like you were in a real environment, all that kind of thing. We've had games like, even World of Warcraft, pre-Burning Crusade, or maybe even during that, I'm not sure. But even that game had a sense of world and it being massive and getting somewhere had some sort of importance. We had games that weren't even popular that had it, like Mortal Online, definitely had a sense of scale to the world. Vanguard, Saga of Hero definitely had a huge sense to how huge everything was, and when you got somewhere, when you beheld that place, that dungeon you're going to, or that temple, it was something amazing and almost breathtaking when you started seeing it in the distance and you start getting closer to it and you finally arrive, and all the details of it coming into focus, all that kind of thing. Vanguard's probably one of the better examples. EverQuest had it for sure. Even games like Black Desert Online to a certain extent have it. Star Wars Galaxies certainly had it. So there's all kinds of MMOs that have this kind of feel. I couldn't mention them all. But what that means in translation is that basically if you get there too quickly, uneventfully, if the world's too narrow, if there's too many paths and it's kind of forcing everyone down this one kind of tunnel vision to the location, it does lose a sense of wonder and a sense of discovery and a sense of exploration. Something that Pantheon's huge on. Something as you're watching this clip I'd also like you to think of, all the verticality, and he's going to talk on that, all the verticality of this zone to get there, because this is a fairly early place. You can get here at a pretty low level, and it, you know, not to say you can come back here at many different levels, and it's, you know, the Black Rose Keep is definitely a place that you can spend a lot of time in and return to at different levels. However, what I'm saying here is it's a place you get to fairly early, and it's typically, almost unfortunately, for most people that these beginning times, this honeymoon period with the MMO that they're playing is where they're really kind of piece together what kind of game this is, and if this is a game they want to continue playing. So I do think it was very important that they did this particular move. I think it was very smart, totally unexpected, totally not something that I thought they would do, but I think that it was smart. Let's continue forward though, and let's hear more of what Joppa has to say.
That was one of the reasons that pushed us to pick up Black Rose Keep and move it to a different location. It was before in Avendir's Pass, and while there were, you know, obviously lore-related reasons, and it was intentionally placed where it was, it gave us an opportunity with what I was talking about before to really rethink, like, okay, where do we really feel like Black Rose Keep could sit in the world, to where it's not just something that you're seeing from across, you know, maybe the first or the second zone that you come to, but it actually involves quite a bit of traversal, and even some fairly difficult traversal to get there. So what we've done is we've taken a couple of key shots. We're also being very intentional and very careful about what we show, because as we've talked about many times before, there's being in open development, there's always a balance between showing meaningful progress, making sure that we're being consistent and transparent about the progress that the game is making, but also wanting to always keep hold enough back to where there's not, you know, fatigue when the game launches, where areas have just been overexposed. So let me say a few quick things about the keep itself and this area itself. The first thing you're going to notice is that while we've shown the keep before in the past, there's plenty in these video clips to let you know that the keep itself has undergone quite a bit of change in the form of expanding it, breaking it up into multiple layers, and then even incorporating what to me is some incredibly impactful landscape and world composition we're seeing here, with the differences in the elevation, the differences in just the topography and the geometry of this play area. Obviously not just pretty to look at and interesting to look at, but when you consider the climbing system and the full scale climbing that we have, it's just another example of how our gameplay spaces are fully embracing not only the horizontal aspect, but the vertical aspect very much so. It should always be the case that there would be multiple ways for you, depending on your level range, depending on your climbing skill, depending on multiple different factors, to approach and access different areas. So we're super excited about Black Rose Keep and what it's become, the kind of identity that it now has. We feel like nestled in its new and permanent location. The other thing you're going to notice too is that it's not just the keep itself, but there's an entire zone really dedicated to this, and not just in support of Black Rose Keep, but Black Rose Keep sits within a larger zone that has many other points of content in it as well. And it's going to be, for our pre-alpha testers, a very consistent theme that they're going to be seeing throughout all the different gameplay areas, is that you're going to be enjoying a much larger scale and context of the different areas that make up Terminus now, that we've been able to really revisit and kind of take what we've learned, the feedback we've gotten, and then start imbuing that into the scale and the scope and the layout of our zones. We've also got here just, it's been a while since we've shown some nighttime. And while this still being in a gray box state, we're not spending a ton of time right now dialing in, every little touch and detail on, things like lighting and atmospherics and things like that. These are really, again, just enough to be representative. And gray box is always really a spectrum. You can have a gray box that's completely primitive, circles and spheres and squares and rectangles, or you can have gray box like what you see here, which is what we would call presentation gray box, which is fully representative of shape and contour and space that the actual geometry takes up in the game world. And the reason for that is not only because it looks a lot prettier, which it certainly does, but it also is what allows Greybox to serve its ultimate purpose, which it's going to let us build these places out as we've done. And because it's essentially one-to-one geometry, just without final textures and kind of that finishing pass, it's going to allow us to place NPCs in all of our game systems in a legitimate way. With Greybox, it's the visuals that are representative, it's the visuals that are footprinted, but the gameplay is able to be layered in legitimate and full form ways around it. So, if you're like us, it's amazing how when you factor in composition, when you factor in the scale, when you factor in the elevation, and then the context of the gameplay, the setting, the lore, it is a striking environment. And whether zones are in a more of a final art form or as this one in more of a gray box form, it's amazing how little ultimately it detracts from the sense of experience and the impact that the zone has, even visually. And then how much more, as we get to the point where we're able to start finalizing the art in some of these areas, it will only be that much, more of a step forward. So we were excited to show this, really excited to use this as an opportunity to talk about that sense of arrival and to really come into PA5. It's one of the things it's one of the main data points we're looking for is now that more of the world, more of this, first continent of Kingsreach is coming together in its entirety in terms of all the different zones, their connectivity, being able to run, continuously from, Thronefast to Fairthale, for example, and make that full run on foot. We're going to start paying very close attention now in pre-alpha 5 to player population, player movement, player push, migration, bottlenecks, congregation points. Where are players naturally drawn to? Where are the community points naturally happening? And that's something that we want the pre-alpha testers to come in with a really good kind of focus on is what does the scale and feel and flow of Terminus feel like now compared to when it was last experienced.
So first of all, I think it's important to understand that what they're doing here is they're piecing together the different zones in such a way that basically an entire area for a whole race or a couple of races is actually coming together in such a way that they can use the tools from Unity in order to more quickly add those textures and things and those packets in to upgrade actually very swiftly to these gray boxes and replace it. But to build the world first, in order where the NPC is going to go, where's all these points of interest going to be, all that kind of thing while it's still gray boxed, and then add all the detail on top of that later. So a lot of people see that, and I know they're going to be like, oh my gosh, the game is so far from release because all the gray boxing, holy crap, this zone, oh my gosh, please guys, understand that that's how this entire game, that's how every zone has been made in this game, is they gray box it first. Have been showing us for years if that's how they develop things, right? And like he said in that video, they're only going to give us a small sample of each thing, right? So The problem was they showed Black Rose Keep, the inside of it, running dungeon runs, and all kinds of community and different streamers went in there, and of course they did lots of runs in there. And the thing is, you have to pull back at some point, right? You have to pull back because that fatigue he's talking about is real. I've played lots of games in alpha and in beta, and especially when you're given the specific, which is usually how it goes, you're in the specific area and you play it to death. You play it over and over and over, and when the game actually launches, you are fatigued with that area. You want to do anything but that area, right? So that could affect a lot. That could affect what race people pick. All the people carried over from alpha, beta, or even pre-alpha could be like, I'm not picking that race because I am so sick of those zones, right? And you don't want that. That causes an imbalance in the world and in the game and in all kinds of different areas. So they're very careful what they show versus what they have. You need to understand that. It's super important that they continue development on this path. But the main point is that things are coming together and we're moving towards pre-alpha 5, which is about to come out this summer, any day now. Make sure you pay attention if you're a pledger for the pre-alpha level. Make sure you pay attention to emails and, of course, on the pre-alpha forum, which is its own separate thing compared to the regular forums on the website. We got lots of information about the new website, all that kind of thing. And guys, it's awesome. I'm really excited, of course, about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and it's always good to see progress being made. And it's cool to have a little bit of insight at this point in development and be able to see some of the decisions they're making, and also to hear some feedback from the community be taken to heart, such as that it needed more scale, it needed to feel bigger, and also, of course, that sense of arriving that he talked about. So getting there and actually feeling like it means something to arrive at this place, and it was a journey to get there. You need scale to do that. You need world scale in order to pull that feeling, that emotion, that attachment, that excitement of being there, of getting there. And like I say, EverQuest definitely had that. You would travel. In EverQuest, they did it to where zones were just gargantuan, right? There wasn't a whole lot of complexity, per se, in the actual getting there part, besides actually just figuring out what zones to go through and how to get there, but it took a lot of time. And that's how EverQuest pulled it off. It's through time, investment in time of running there, or figuring out how to get there, especially in the old days. It's cool to see that they're taking a modern approach to this in order to still give us the same sense of wonder and excitement and exploration, but without actually just making it take 3 hours to get there, right? So, very exciting stuff. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about them moving this Black Rose Keep that we've seen so many times. What do you think about this? Do you think this was a smart decision? What do you think about the geometry and the layout of the new zone? And once again, I know it's in greyboxed, don't need to hear that. I just want to know what you think about it, and that they're really implementing a lot of their different features in there, as you can see, of climbing and stuff like that, which reminds me, of course, a lot of Breath of the Wild, and how you see a place and you think you're just going to get there so easy, and there's all kinds of obstacles, and you got to figure out how to get there, right? And that's part of the fun of that game, and I think that's going to be part of the fun in Pantheon Rise of Fallen as well. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Once again, big shout out to the members of the Napalm, who have kept this channel alive and ticking and allow me to keep making videos and do what I love to do. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in supporting this channel and what I do here, which is MMORPGs, especially the old school kind or with the old school spirit, as well as JRPGs, puppets, songs, all the stuff I do, please consider clicking the join button down below and becoming an official member of the Napalm with special perks. You can read all about that by clicking join down below. But until next time, guys, God bless and happy gaming. Please listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say it's a video buffet. You can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize, but please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.